Welcome to Lesson 2 of Intro to Python by STEMEncounters. In this lesson, we'll go over variables, casting, and math using Python. We'll also get to use what you learned in the last lesson, so look forward to that. Anyway, without further ado, let's go over variables. When trying to approach variables, I find the best way to conceptualize them is through the box method. To do the box method, you want to first close your eyes. Once you've closed your eyes, try to imagine that you have an empty box. This is the basis of your variable, a place to store something. Next, think of something that you might want to put into your box. I really like apples, so I'll go with apples. Now imagine putting the thing you just imagined into that box. This represents the declaration of a variable. In code form, it would look something like box equals whatever you visualized. Let me give you an example. I opened up the IDE from the last episode, so I'll let you pause now and unpause when you have it open. Okay, so now that you have the IDE open, I'm going to create our example with the box method in code form. So previously, we had a box with an apple in it. So to represent that, you would do box equals string apples. And basically what's happening here is box is representing the string apples. This means that box is a string currently. I can do print box. And once I do that, it should print whatever is in here. Since it represents apples, it'll print apples. Additionally, variables can represent any data type we want. So let's say the box holds a 1, just the number 1. If I print box, it'll print 1. If I did true as a boolean, it'll print true. And if I did 2.0, a float, it'll print 2.0. Now that I've showed you the basis of variables, you can go ahead and pause and mess around with yourself. Once you feel like you've gotten to know variables, you can go ahead and unpause and we'll move on to the next topic. I'm going to write the box method in code form. In the box method, I imagined that we had a box and I had apples. I want to put the apples in the box, so I'll put the string apples into the box, represented by box equals apples. In this case, apples is a string, which means box is also a string. Your variable will inherit whatever data type the value that you put into the box is. So if I wanted to print, if I wanted to print apples, I could do instead box. And now it'll print apples since box represents apples. Additionally, your variable can inherit any data type as long as this the sole data type that the variable is representing. So what that means is I can make my box equals 1. And if I print box now, it'll represent 1. And I can do this for any data type, booleans, floats, etc. As long as it's only an integer in here, or whatever the variable or that type of the variable is. So if I did plus hello, it wouldn't work because it's an int plus a string. Additionally, using variables, we can concatenate a string. What concatenation means is just putting two strings together. So I have name and name 1. Name equals, I don't know, I'll go with a completely random name, Andrew, variable. And let's go with a completely random last name, Dia. Now if I print name plus name 1, we should get Andrew Dia. Now there's no space, so to avoid that, we would just put a string with a space in it, plus, and now we have a name, like that. So now that I've shown you the basis of variables, you can go ahead and pause the video and mess around with it until you feel comfortable. Unpause when you feel like you know variables well, and we'll move on to the next topic, casting. Let's say that you made a really awesome program that takes in user input. And a user inputs 3 in string form, but you don't want it in string form. You want it as an integer. What do you do now? Well, Python has a really neat thing called casting for that. Casting enables us to convert from one data type to another. To cast, you can use 3 different functions. Int, float, parentheses, parentheses, str, parentheses, parentheses. Int, parentheses, parentheses, converts any data type to a integer. Float, parentheses, parentheses, converts any data type into a float. And the str one converts any data type into a string. As an example, we'll use the example from before. The user gives us 3 in a string form, and I want it as an int. Now I'll just convert the string 3 into an int, and now it's an int. Let's say that now we want it as a float. If I replace the int with a float, it appears as 3.0. And if I do a string, this is kind of arbitrary, but we'll get 3. And another thing is, what happens if we have a float and we want it as an integer, let's say 2.8. Previously, we learned that an int is a whole number. You can't have decimals. What happens now? You can pause the video, give your best guess, and unpause when you think you have an answer. Okay, so when we do this, we actually get 2. Now, why do we get 2? Well, that's because Python automatically rounds the number down, no matter how high it is. So we can have 9.99999, and we'd still get 2. And that's basically all there is to casting. Casting is just a way for us to conveniently change one data type to another, and you see it a lot in everyday programming. Anyway, like always, you can pause the video and mess around with it now, and unpause when you feel like you're comfortable with it. After that, we'll move swiftly along into math. Okay, so now that we've covered variables and casting, let's move on to math. Math is arguably one of the biggest parts of programming, and once you get better at programming, you'll realize that writing code is about 10% syntax, 40% logic, and the rest is math. Programming math and IRL math are pretty similar. It's just that math and programming is automated. Here's an example of the similarities. In the real life, we would write 2 plus 2 equals 4 as 2 plus 2 equals 4. In Python, however, it's a little bit harder. Here's an example of what it would look like in Python. You would write a variable equals, there are like a gajillion different ways of writing this, but here's the way using stuff we learned today. I'll do 2 plus 2, and then I would print string 2 plus 2 equals, and then comma result. And this would give us 2 plus 2 equals 4. Another thing we can do is print 2 plus 2 equals plus str result. Notice the casting, and we get 2 plus 2 equals 4. Additionally, in Python, we're offered a lot of different useful math functions that help make our coding experience a lot more convenient. These functions go min, max, abs, POW. And there are also hidden functions that we can only get if we import math module. Well, we haven't gone over importing yet. Just know that this means that we're importing a library called math, which holds these hidden functions. The hidden functions are, or the imported functions are, math.square root, math.ceil, math.floor, and math.pi. From the top, we'll go over each of these functions. Min will give us the minimum of a set of numbers. So if I print min in a bunch of numbers, so let's say 3, 2, 5, 7, you can put as many numbers as you want, we should get a return value of 2. I put one too many parentheses, and can we get rid of this? We should get a return value of 2, since it's the lowest number in this set of numbers. Now if I did max, however, I would get 7 because it's the largest number in this set of numbers. Next thing we'll go over is abs. Abs stands for absolute value in this case, and like in normal math, an absolute value, like these bars here, will return the positive number of any number. So if I did number 2, -2, abs, -2, it should give me 2, and if I did float, it gives me 2.0. The next thing we'll go over is POW. The POW function represents, in IRL math, raising something to a different power. So I'll do POW 2, 3. The first number will always represent the value that you want to raise to a certain power, and 3 will always represent the power you want to raise the value to. So I want to raise 2 to the power of 3. I should get 8. Yep. Alright. So let's move on to the imported functions. So the first thing we'll go over is math.squirt. And what that does is, as the name suggests, it square root something. So if I did 3, I should get 1.73, since it's the square root of 3. And the next thing is math.ceil and math.floor. Math.ceil will round a float to the next highest integer. So if I did math.ceil math.square root, which we got before, which is 1.73, we should get 2. Oh, I am missing a parentheses. If I run it, I should get 2, since 2 is the next highest integer from 1.7. Also, by the way, math.square root will always return a float. Math.floor will round your float to the next lowest integer. So 1.7 would equal 1. This is like when we cast a float to an integer. So think of that. Next thing is math.pi. Now math.pi is pretty simple to understand. Math.pi will just represent the number pi. So if I did print math.pi, it should just print the actual value of pi. And that's basically all there is to math functions. Obviously, there's a lot more you can do with math. This is just the basics, and I hope you enjoy. In the next lesson, we'll go over if statements and loops. So look forward to that. And your assignment for this lesson is creating a program that takes user input and puts them through the Pythagorean theorem, which is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, by the way. And the result of the program should just print the c value. See you next episode.